Allow me to open this video with a quote. We've probably had too good an opinion of human nature in forming our confederation. Experience has taught us that men will not adopt and carry into execution measures the best calculated for their own good, without the intervention of a coercive power. Many are of the opinion that Congress have too frequently made use of the suppliant, humble tone of requisition and applications to the states, when they had a right to assert their imperial dignity and command obedience. If you tell the legislatures they have invaded the prerogatives of Confederacy, they will laugh in your face. George Washington, 1786. That is one of my favorite quotes about governance. We hold George Washington as a founding father and the other founding fathers in a extremely high esteem as it's regarded and related to freedom. Now, I know many libertarians and anarchist-minded people are already familiar with that quote. And when we have a non-aggression principle or a zero-aggression principle, it's one of the cornerstones of that policy. There we have General George Washington talking about a monopoly on coercive force and the application thereof. And it also shares with us George Washington's opinion on the population's ability towards self-governance. Now, when you take something that a man of the caliber of George Washington, when you take something that he says, there's a couple ways to take it. One, if you disagree with the statement that I just made wholeheartedly, then you just dismiss what the man says. The alternative to that is you can understand and appreciate the caliber of individual that George Washington was, his love for this country, his love for us before we were even born. If you assume and accept that and really listen to what an honorable gentleman is trying to say, you get a very different picture of what's going on. Furthermore, if we take that quote into context, 1786, we are 1 year prior to the penning, or the signing rather, of the United States Constitution that was destined to be adopted. And we were in a situation where the country was governed by something called the Articles of the Confederacy. Now, the issue here is that in historical context, Congress had appropriated and promised to pay persons fighting in the Revolutionary War for the defense of the then colonies and soon to be United States during the war. When the time came to actually pay them, they could not get the necessary unanimous vote in order to send those funds out. So to rephrase that, they had no problem having a unanimous vote to obligate the forces and to promise, but when it came time to pay, that's when the disagreement stopped. And the Articles of the Confederation, only one person in the Articles of the Confederation and a bill could not get passed. Now, what George Washington is saying here is that this Congress had obligated itself to pay. It had obligated itself to conduct an action based on its promise, and it would not carry it through. More or less, if you look at it, it was an affront to honor. If Congress was an entity and it obligated itself by saying it was going to do something and it did not do that, that was not an honorable thing. So, a couple of points here, and it has to do with self-governance and the reasons why we see certain laws about assault weapons or weapons restrictions or action restrictions, training restrictions, device restrictions, and things like that, is that people in our own citizenry have proved incapable of self-governance. Somewhere in their path through life, the wiring and the circuitry that says, no, you should not do these things because you are not to harm others, is not there, either by nefarious reasons or whatever. And terrible things happen. And, unfortunately, they will continue to happen. And we can't do anything about how they happened in the past. And it brings us into this situation to where should lawmakers be obligated to pass prima facie laws in order to prevent or minimize bad things? More or less, to make a law before something happens to make it less likely for something terrible to happen. And this is a response, finally, to Hash Nazi's video about his state senator Yi's recent Google Plus forum. Now, let me just say right off the bat, I applaud Senator Lee, or Yi, Y-E-E. You'll have to forgive me. I do not forget. I do not remember your first name. It's not intentional. I'm not trying to be rude. But I applaud the process that a senator would admit himself or herself to be subject to a panel, whether it was cherry-picked or not. They were getting some pretty good questions, but to submit to a panel where you actually hear a senator's or let's say it's a congressperson's voice about a subject, a real humanity thing. And I think that's a great idea because it breaks us away from these blind coalitions where, okay, let's say somebody's for gay marriage and they love the environment, they can give a shit less about guns, but yet they're a Democrat. So okay, so yeah, we like the environment, we like gay marriage, and well, I don't care one way or the other about guns, so, Team Blue doesn't like them, so I'm all with them. The ironic part of that is that, Democrats don't necessarily go along with gay marriage or civil union or whatever. Both parties have evolved to a situation with regard to civil and public union to a very bizarre location, and neither one of them have a problem with it. It's just the Republicans seem fit to apply their version of morality towards it. Good, bad, or indifferent. But now with the meat and the potatoes, and I'm sure some of you watching this are eager for me to get to the point about the gun control. And I'm not really sure if I'll say something that's going to satisfy your opinion of what I think about it. You can think what you want. I know when I do videos like this, really quick as an aside, I get a lot of comments because, oddly enough, if you don't agree with private citizen firearm ownership in just the right way, people freak out because they don't understand you. Let me just state it clearly then. It is illegal for the United States government or any state governing bodies to pass any laws dealing with the ability of a private citizen to own any weapon and bear any weapon whatsoever at any time. It is illegal. There are principles behind why it is illegal. So now that you hear that clearly stated, hopefully I can save you some little clicky time. Of course, probably you guys already commented, and hopefully you kept watching the video, so now you feel the fool. So, to respond directly to Hash Nazi's video towards Senator Yis Commentary, I'm going to be honest, and this is how I feel at the time of me recording this. just a guy in his kitchen, man. Just a guy sitting here talking in his kitchen. Um, I believe that people demonstrating like the ridiculousness of certain bands or whatever with physical props. I think it's been sort of played out, um, and I believe that the disingenuousness of the uh, of the conversation, disingenuous for those who aren't into $10 words, is just a fancy word for an underhanded lie. You're not lying, but you're not exactly telling the truth. It's like a lie by omission. An example of disingenuous would be me saying, "Well, I need my guns for hunting," you know, or "I need my guns for target practice," or whatever. And the problem you get into when you take such a stance is you get people regulating. Well, if all you need it for is hunting, then this device will be sufficient for that. Or if all you need is for target practice, then this device is fine. The only purpose for this other device is to harm individuals. Okay, so I think in the case of the Senator Yi, which I will give you a link to Hash Nasi's video here, which he has some clips, and I want to say he probably has a link to the actual Google Hangout that Yi did. Um, it's one of those things like I'm trying to figure out how to put this exactly without my train of thought derailing. Um, he in the conversation, and this is how it happened, is the moderator as well as the guests were trying to get this man to admit, if possible, that his end game was the eradication of weapons in private hands. My personal belief is that is the only reason for it. He was point blank asked the question of, well, if the idea is to curb gun violence, then why go after this very small, slight segment of the violence? Uh, and Senator Yee's explanation was when these devices, uh, these higher capacity, higher power devices, are used in the course of violence, the violence is much more terrible than when it's just a handgun, an individual. Even though, if you total up all the little small ones, it's 96 times greater than what these other devices do. But man, those other devices sure make the news, don't they? And they sure make it difficult for police to respond. But it isn't a matter of just saying, well, you're wrong because you're being ignorant, you just want to take this away. I am going to personally acknowledge, yes, when a rifle is brought to bear in the course of violence, that violence is much greater than a handgun. Um, and frankly, that's why a couple of the particular rifles I own are rifles. Is there, the real question is there a reason for a private citizen to own such a device? And I will say yes. And you ask me why my reasons are, and I will say, well, that is none of your particular business. I'm a law-abiding citizen, and I have not committed a crime. So therefore, there is no reason for a person who has not committed a crime is to be punished. I have no intention of committing a crime. I have no intention of ever harming someone for any reason. So, in closing, it comes down to a perspective of governance. Are we capable of self-governance? I believe that I personally am. Uh, I believe that others are not so confident in their fellow man. And it would almost appear that the evidence is on their side. You can point out many cases of a person's lack of ability of self-governance, how people sometimes, and if it's magnified enough, you can see case after case after case where a person cannot conduct themselves in a manner that does not harm others. So if that's their point, okay. I'm not sure if that is their point, but uh, Hash had asked me to respond to this, and I just wanted to give y'all what was on my mind. Hope this message finds you well, and we'll be seeing y'all later. Thanks for listening.